lay some ground. Awesome. I love that it gives you the little message. But anyway, just wanted to welcome everyone into this space. We have some very exciting people with us here today. And all of the participants will be muted for the time being, and then you will be able to unmute after we do some introductions and get through part of the talk this evening. So until then, keep your questions in mind, and we'll have an opportunity to unmute and ask questions after our speakers tell us a little bit about themselves. We also want this to be a very welcoming and inclusive space, and we're recording right now. If we want to have conversations or questions afterwards, that we'll stop recording at some point. And this is a welcoming, inclusive, open space, and we want people to feel that and to feel like you have community here in this space. And so I'm not sure if there's anything else we need to mention. Lisa, let me know if there is. And if not, I will turn it over to our guests that are here with us from the Air Force today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Hidea Starigo. I'm currently stationed at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. My current position is the flight commander for the Directorate of Training, as well as the Advanced Geospatial Production Flight within the 36th Intelligence Squadron. Before we begin, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my backstory. So I grew up in Groton and Aberdeen, South Dakota. My family was actually pretty poor. I had an alcoholic stepfather and a pretty abusive mother, physically and emotionally. And growing up, I knew I always wanted to be an astronaut and work for NASA. And in 4th grade, I actually had the opportunity to meet astronaut Mike Mullane. And he asked me what I wanted to become. And I said, sir, I'm going to become just like you. How do I make that happen? And he told me the United States Air Force would probably be your best bet. So from then on, I ran with it and was like, I'm going to make it someday and follow my dreams. So with that being said, my senior year, I went to the recruiter's office, and I walked into the recruiter's office at the Air Force in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and asked him, I was like, how do I become an astronaut? And he was like, whoa, 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 let's hold those horses right there. Let's talk about what your goals are and stuff, and let's go through the entire process. I actually submitted myself for the Air Force Academy because he thought I had potential. I was instead selected to join West Point. I declined at the time because I was, like I said, dead set on starting my career with the Air Force. So from there, in total right now, I have 17 and a half years as an active duty member within the military. I spent the first half of my career as enlisted, 11.5 years to be exact. And I was a 1 Charlie 3 command post. And what that entails is emergency management. I've been on 3 deployments, 3 specific locations. The first one in 2006, which was in Iraq. The second in Central America, I was doing drug interdiction. And the third, I was in the Middle East as doing human operations. So that's human intelligence. That was pretty awesome deployment. All of them actually were. In 2015, I actually had the opportunity to become an officer under the Senior Leaders Enlisted Commissioning Programs for those with a bachelor's degree. And I was part of the first iteration of which General Goldfein and Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Cody, selected me and gave me a call and said, hey, you were chosen to skip the entire OTS board and direct commission. My 3-star at the time said I overanalyze everything in life. So intelligence would be the job for me. And here I am, in the intelligence career field for the past 5.5 years, loving every moment of it. My degrees, I have a Community College of the Air Force degree in Information Systems Technology. My bachelor's degree is in Aerospace Studies, and I'm currently in Penn State obtaining my master's degree in Homeland Security with the Geospatial Intelligence option. In March 12th, 2021, so this year, I transferred to the United States Space Force, and I became the first female Native American intelligence officer to be selected to transfer in. So that's pretty cool. My next duty position will actually take place in October. I will head to the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. to become the Chief of Space Ops / Orbital Warfare. It sounds like a really awesome gig. I'm super excited. And I'm even more excited that from the story that was actually published on social media, on multiple various social media sites, I had the pleasure of meeting and getting connected and networking in with Mrs. Melcher, Master Perez, Colonel Adams, and a multitude of other entities. And that from there, we actually had the INET, so the Indigenous Nations Equality Team. And I'm now here fighting this. And what I love about it is it's like my passion. My entire dream has been wanting, and I didn't know how to go about it, to inspire others and like bring up the future generations and just let other people know that no matter what your situation is, a lot of us have a story to tell. And, you know, it's hardships at some capacity, especially for us within our ethnicity and just the environment that we are usually exposed to. And from there, I just want to let them know that you just, no matter what obstacles are in your way, you have got to put your head down and just believe in yourself and just stay focused and make sure your priorities are actually aligned with what you want out of life, and just keep going after it, because there are so many other Indigenous peoples that are actually so successful. There's people that I've met so far that through these keynote engagements that have master's degrees already, that are working on their doctorate degrees. We are so successful. There's so many opportunities for us. And so to have that passion where everyone has that safe community to where we can work on, you know, fostering so we can work on fostering those relationships amongst each other across the nation. It's so inspiring, and it's motivating me. Every day I wake up knowing that there's a cause out there now and we're gonna be heard. And there's so much support across the board from all services and stuff, but within us, under the DAF, so the US Air Force and the US Space Force, you know, airmen and guardians alike, and civilians, and whether you're active duty, reserve, guard, civilian, you name it. I mean, there's so many opportunities for you, and those that want to join for recruitment purposes and stuff, we're here to advocate for you. And so at the end of the day, it's an honor, it's a privilege, but it's also really humbling, because I just know that there's so many people out there that have the same vision. It's a holistic vision, and I'm excited to see where it takes us.
Hi, so I am Master Sergeant Perez. I am from the Nambe Pueblo, and I live on the Nambe Pueblo Reservation out in New Mexico. So I grew up on the reservation. I went to a local school with all the local kids, you know, from all different backgrounds, all different races. It wasn't just Native American kids, so that was pretty cool. So I graduated from Rotc. I went on to the local community college, and then moved on to the University of New Mexico. So as I was going to school for the university, I was about to run out of money. All my scholarships were going to end, and there wasn't going to be any money for me to finish school. And I didn't want my dad to have to pay for my school, because I felt like I worked as hard as I can to get where I am, and I don't want my dad to have to foot the bill for what I want to do. So I looked into the Air Force. I didn't want to go active duty, and my sister was in the Army National Guard, and she had transferred over to the Air National Guard. So I looked into that. While I was looking into that, our country was attacked on 9/11. So that pushed me even more to join the Air Force so that I could do my part to protect my country. So in November of 2001, I joined the New Mexico Air National Guard. I've joined the 150th Fighter Wing here at Kirtland Air Force Base. And I have been with the wing for now 20 years, coming up in November. So the Air National Guard is a reserve component of the Air Force, which basically means you get into the Air Force like a regular enlisted person. You go to basic training, you go to your job training. And once you're done with your job training, you come back home. You go back to whichever base or whichever unit you joined with, and you do your training. You do your 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. So it's a really awesome opportunity for people that want to get into the Air Force, but don't necessarily want to go active duty and have to move away from home or have to move across the country. So within the Guard, I've had the opportunity to do more days, like more than just my obligation. I've had the opportunity to do exercises, to be deployed. I've gone to Korea and Iraq. I've also had the chance to change career fields. So along the way, the fighter wing lost their jets. So that meant that the whole entire wing had to change their focus. So now part of the wing is for training, the other part is civil engineers, and then we have the 250th Intelligence Squadron, which is where I work. I'm an intelligence analyst. I became one back in, was it 2011? I went off to training all over again out in Texas for about half a year, which was pretty intense. But now I work with one of the top intelligence groups within the intelligence community for the Air Force. And we're always tasked with a lot of really cool exercises and opportunities. So while I was doing all this stuff with the Guard, another big push for joining the Air National Guard is getting to have a civilian career. So once I got my bachelor's degree from UNM, I wasn't ready to use it. I had gotten it in elementary education. I was going to become a teacher, but I was like, I'm not ready to deal with the parents. I love the kids, but the parents are, stressful. So I decided to follow in my father's footsteps and become a police officer. So I became a police officer, commissioned with the Santa Fe Police Department. I worked there for 9 years. And after that 9 years, I had an opportunity to work for the Air Force with the intelligence community for full time. As it's kind of weird, it's like a civilian spot, but you still wear your uniform. It's really hard to explain, but that's what I had done for a little while. The funding for that stopped, but the Air Force was still able to give me orders, which is basically I'm like an active duty person for a set amount of time. I've been doing that for 8 years. I also had the chance to start a second career or a third career, I would say, as a background investigator for the security clearances. So everybody in the Air Force has a security clearance. We start off with a secret. Some of us have higher ones, but I do that. I help get people their security clearances. Overall, my experience with the Air Force has been amazing because I have had the chance to be a Guard member and just do my weekend duties or go off to exercises for a few weeks. And I've also had my chance to be an active duty member and go off for several months to trainings or to deployments. It's been one of the greatest experiences of my life. Some of my closest friends, some of the just amazing things that I've learned and seen being in the Air Force, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. On top of the fact that I've been able to get a civilian career, I can go back and forth. So if this is something that you want to look into, check out the Guard. It's not just active duty. I'm not an officer, I'm an enlisted person. So there's different areas you can go into. That's all I have.
So, hello everyone, my name is Jacqueline Melcher. I am an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I was born and raised in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, South Dakota. My story started out with growing up on a reservation with lighter skin and lighter hair, and those are challenges because I wasn't dark enough skinned, and then when I left the reservation, I would have challenges because I was from the reservation. So I've experienced a lot of hurtful things in my life, but it's made me who I am today. And so I got my degree from School of Mines in South Dakota. I'm a civil engineer. And when I was in School of Mines, I was the secretary, vice president, president of AISES. See, I have my pin right here. My chapter won Chapter of the Year in 2009/10 because of our public outreach and the amazing support we provide each other, and also the community to try to encourage other Native Americans to attend a university to get a degree in STEM. Graduated from college, went to my first job in North Dakota as a civil engineer for a consulting firm. So, met my wonderful husband who was active in the Air Force in North Dakota. And that led me into a career with the DoD. I've been with the DoD now for 2 years. I'm a civil engineer and I'm a flight chief over a big flight that oversees a lot of different things at Joint Base Charleston. When I was going to college, I wasn't aware that you could be a civilian and work with the Air Force and not be a uniform member. And so I never served myself, but all my family was military. My grandfathers are both in World War II. My parents are both in Vietnam. Native Americans historically have a large representation of military members. And so because I never served as a military member, I'm serving now as a civilian. And I found myself like my calling. And the fact that I can now incorporate my Native American heritage and try to affect policy with the Air Force is something I'm so passionate about. I've been doing this since I was in college, I won't tell you when, but a long time ago. So my sisters and I all grew up on the reservation, and we were very poor, just like Star. Star Eagle and I have a lot of similarities in our upbringing. We had, a lot of days where we, didn't have running water. We didn't have adequate roadway systems. And so that kind of sparked me to be a civil engineer and try to come back and make a difference. My path didn't lead me that way. God has a plan for all of us. And so his path led me to the Air Force. And now I can make a big impact with the military members and the civilians and Native Americans and Indigenous peoples for, our country's defense. And I find a lot of fulfillment being able to serve every day side by side with a military member, knowing that what I'm doing is making a difference. When my husband comes home at night wearing his uniform and he just got done sending off a jet somewhere to go deliver COVID vaccinations, for instance, that to me makes me feel very proud. So I'm going to backtrack now and talk about INET. So 2 years ago, we had a diversity day at Joint Base Charleston, which is where I'm stationed now with my husband, and our base commander at the time, Colonel Adams, was there. And I decided to have a booth for my tribe and Native Americans. I made buffalo stew, which I had flown in from home. And it's not readily available here in Charleston, shrimp and mahi-mahi, but not buffalo stew. So I had buffalo flown in, and I made wojapi and fry bread and buffalo stew, and I had a big poster, and I wore my shawl, and I had my star quilts, and was just loud and proud, like, you're right, I'm Native American, I'm from the res, I'm all Oglala Sioux. So Colonel Adams, who is now General Adams Select, moved on to the Pentagon, and I got a phone call about, 6 months ago, and he said, hey, this is Colonel Adams, Miss Melcher. Do you have a second to talk? I said, well, yeah, you're a colonel and you're my leader, so yeah, I can talk to you. So long story short, the Department of the Air Force has a bear analysis working group. It's called DAFBOG. And he asked if I'd be willing to represent Indigenous peoples, be part of the DAFBOG. And I was like, not just, yeah, but heck yeah. So we got started, and we now have our charter, which has now allowed me to meet amazing women like Star Eagle and Perez and Castilian and Landers on the phone call. And so our job and our challenge and our mission is to identify barriers or things with the policy of the DAF, Department of the Air Force, that inhibit Native Americans from being fully successful. We've identified several of them so far, and we are going to try to affect policy and make a difference and change it. We have 3 R's we'd like to talk about: remove barriers, recruit, and retain. Part of this phone call today is just to educate and try to recruit and help people understand that the bigger picture is that the DAF is listening, and we're here to advocate for our people. And it's such an opportunity, and it's such an honor for me personally, and for everyone on this call that has this ability to advocate, make change, affect policy for future generations. My mom was a Marine in the 70s in Vietnam. You can only imagine the things that she had to go through as a Vietnam vet. And I'll show you a picture of her because I showed the other girls, but this is my mama. So she passed away in 2011, and I have her picture on my desk and her flag from her funeral in a nice case. And they'd be very proud if they saw what we were doing today. And before she passed away, she was a council member, tribal council member for our district, Oglala district on Pine Ridge. And she was very proud of that because she wanted to make change and advocate for people and have a voice. So I feel honored to be able to do that as well. And with all of that said, I would like to open it up to the students or anybody on this call to ask us questions about maybe, what misconceptions did you have about the military, and more particular, maybe the Air Force / Space Force, and what can we do as our INAT team to make it better and try to affect change and policy with the DAF. Over. Not everyone at once, by the way, not everyone at once.
So Jacqueline, I have some questions, but I think kind of for any of you that want to answer, I know students are a little bit shy, so I'll jump in because I have a bunch of questions actually.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't know that there was also like an Air Force Reserve. That's particularly interesting. How does that work geographically, and how, is it kind of everywhere also major, near major bases? Like how accessible is it to everybody, particularly like maybe students living out on the res or in smaller communities?
Well, there's the Guard, the Air National Guard or the Army National Guard, and there's the Air Reserve. So Air Reserve is directly under the president. The Air National Guard is under the governor of the state and then the president. So they're 2 different ones. And it's just kind of like a different pool of money, different duties. So the National Guard is state. So there usually is one when it comes to the Air Force. They're usually one base. I'm not 100% sure that every single state has one. I know that every single state does not have a direct reserve component because my husband's in the Air Reserve, but he has to go to Colorado for his duty. But usually the Air Reserve, the Air Guard is connected to like an air base, depending on their mission. But I also know that there are air guards that are just like by an airport. They're not at an actual full-fledged Air Force base. They're at like a National Guard base. I know that's up in, I know that for sure up in Ohio. They're just there by an airport. I'm not exactly sure on all the states, but I do know that they're not necessarily right by an active duty base.
So I can add to, for instance, at Joint Base Charleston, which is a joint base, which is comprised of during the BRAC realignment, which is base realignment something, sorry, another acronym that the military loves acronyms. They merged a Navy base with an Air Force base with Air Force being lead command. So Joint Base Charleston actually does have a 315th reserve wing for flyers, because we have the C-17 where Air Mobility Command is our MAJCOM, Major Command. We also have Red Horse Reserve ZIS. Red Horse is basically civil engineers for the Air Force that go downrange and set up camp essentially for the Air Force for their movements. So we do have those two, and as well as the Air National Guard base. So depending on the state, depending on the installation, depending on the mission, it can have all three or none at all. I'm not sure if, let's say, Ellsworth and Rapid City has a reserve component, but I know they do have something at Sioux Falls, as well as North Dakota. Fargo has a reserve component, but Grand Forks Air Force Base does have, active duty as well as Minot. So depending on the state, depending on the installation, that will tell you what they have there. But if you have, we can find out for you, Lisa, if you want, all the different bases and what they have there as far as National Guard, reservists, or active duty. We can do that for you if you'd like. I'll take a note to find that information out.
I'm sure it's probably out there too, and I could look. I was just curious because I had not really heard about that program. I think I hear more about the Army National Guard, and so just curious about all of that. I will take a break and see if anyone else wants to jump in with a question before I ask more of mine.
One of the things I'd like to note real quick, Lisa, is we've recently received some data that shows the Air Force does offer scholarships for ROTC, which is, what does ROTC stand for? I don't even know. It's basically a segue from college into the Air Force if you choose to go that way. They give you scholarship money. You do like drill weekends when you're in college, and it's kind of a format, if you will. We realized that some of those scholarships, none of them are really offered to several states that have a high population of Native American Indigenous peoples. So one of the things that we are working on as a group, is to fix that. If we want to have more inclusion of Native Americans, we need to make sure that we offer scholarships to Native Americans that want to become part of the Air Force. ROTC stands for Reserve Officers Training Course. Thank you, Star Eagle. I was actually really surprised at the scholarships and the schools offered, that none of them were in South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, or Nebraska. We have several large installations in all those states. Global Strike with the nuclear triad, or two of the three. We have Ellsworth Air Force Base. We have Offutt, Nebraska, which is Stratcom's MAJCOM. So several bases that we could have, that have major universities, North Dakota State, School of Mines, tribal colleges. So we're working through that as well. It's not intentional, it's just they weren't aware. So we will now work through that issue, hopefully, to offer opportunities to Native Americans that want to stay closer to home and maybe pursue an option for the Air Force as a reservist or National Guard or even full-time active duty. Over.
Okay, I'll ask my next question. And this can kind of go for any of you, but Jacqueline, I know with your experience, what kind of work did it take? I know you got a direct call from, a superior about getting something like this started, but what do students need, or what do other young professionals need to get kind of this, like an ITAP within their organization? What kind of support would have been helpful? What kind of support maybe do you think you all still need, you know, in becoming successful and growing? And I think it's just so important that you all have this now, and it's so exciting and so wonderful. How can others do it? You know, kind of almost replicate it, or how can you grow this this program too? What
So
does that all
like
make
for
sense?
me in particular, I wouldn't be where am today if it wasn't for my Challenge by A program and my fellow Native Americans at School of Mines. The support from family, I had mentors, people that are willing to offer that support and mentor us and give us guidance. And you know, with as you become leaders in the Air Force or any job, if you will, people want to mentor you and they want to be mentored. And so it's just the willingness to seek out. And I've reached out to several people in the Air Force and said, hey, I'm a new civilian, you want to mentor me? And more times than not, they're 100% on board, especially for females, because there's very fewer of us than there are males, especially in engineering field. We want to encourage and support and try to help promote, you know, other people to be successful. And that just comes with being good people. You know, one of the biggest things, one of my biggest, I'm also getting my master's degree from Air Command Staff College in Joint Warfare Concentration. And I wrote a paper recently for my classes about Crazy Horse. My professor was very excited about that because, you know, no one wants to, they write about Patton or they write about all these big generals, they never write about a Native American leader. But Crazy Horse's biggest mantra was he always cared about his people. Like his people and his family were first. And so he led that way. And, you know, most leaders care about their people. And Starryville talked about it earlier, you know, people are important and having empathy and compassion. And so I would hope that they would have enough courage to ask someone to help them or reach out to us, because we're all here. We've all been where they are. I was a AISES student, you know, I was there. And just having that courage and people being willing to help us and lift us and keep us going. Over.
I'd like to chime in right there to kind of tap on to what Mrs. Melcher stated as well. I think for me within my career, it was at the end of the day, just paying it forward. I mean, everything that we're doing right now and the connection and the networks and the linkages that we're building upon with each other, that actually goes so far, and notes have to be taken, you know, and it's just, at the end of the day, you're being kind, you're being empathetic, and whatever struggles or obstacles that we face, at the end of the day, like she said, Mrs. Melcher stated, is just not being afraid to ask for help. And in this capacity, in order to expand, we have to be able to identify, and people have to come forward saying, this is a potential barrier. And when we identify it, then we come together to facilitate creative solutions, you know, maintain the positive synergy at the same time so that all opinions and ideas and solutions are acknowledged, and everyone at the end of the day also has to feel valued within the team. So everyone that's here tonight and across all the chapters that are part of that with the AISES, you know, they're all probably part of high performance teams. And what does that come down to? And at the end of the day, you have to ensure that everyone feels valued. And that's, you know, that's a very important aspect of it. Voices have to be heard. They have to know that you actually care, genuine, like caring, I guess, person disposition, so to speak. One thing that I've noticed like throughout the career is that I just have always been so eager to go, hey, you are successful, can you bring me up? So within the INET community, that's something that we're trying to do, is to just bring others up with us. At some point, we'll retire and there'll be a whole new generation leading this effort. And we have to ensure that it can be maintained. You know, we have this holistic vision, but how are you going to get into that maintenance phase? And, you know, for years after, to ensure that, hey, we're going to continue to inspire and motivate others. And it's just, like I said, just being kind all the way across the board. That's like the biggest thing. And then just ensuring that they have no withholding of information. So we're constantly passing that information, just transparency. I think that's another thing that we're looking for, is transparency amongst all every organizations that we're engaging with, to ensure that we understand what the needs are. And so, I mean, there's going to be a lot up for discussion as we continue to move forward. But any type of ideas that you guys have, we're there, because again, this is not a one-stop shop. There's so much that is going to be needed to be done. And so any type of things that you guys are seeing that you're like, hey, have you guys thought of those? Have you thought about maybe trying this? That's the support we're looking for.
Thank you. I really liked both your answers a lot. That was especially the be kind. And I think that goes a long way in so many different areas. I'm gonna stop asking questions for a minute. Oh, but I did want to also let you know that we'll be, once it's approved, sharing this video. So please also feel free to, you know, put plugs in for any any other pieces, you know, you're recruiting any of that too. Please feel free to be doing that.
So civilians, we do have an internship program. It's called the PAC Acquire Internship Program. And they're usually advertised through USA Jobs. And I know we have two in my section right now. We have a geology major who is working in my environmental section. And you start out and you progress over 3 years and you become a full-time employee. They also maybe have some summertime internships available as well. And that's very valuable. When I was in college, getting good internships and getting the breadth of experience from different, you know, lines of work. I'm a civil engineer, so basically I wanted to get more experience to know as much as I possibly could to be more marketable when I graduated. And that was very valuable. And also just interacting with a national conference with professionals that have made it, you know, to answer your question again, Lisa, you know, professionals that have made it and have, you know, successful careers, ask them if they'll mentor the students or if they have ideas or tips or a lot of feedback people give us their resumes to review or offer, you know, letters of recommendation. So the students, if it can be scary. And a lot of times I found here, especially recently, people don't realize I'm from a reservation and I'm Native American, and they just have general interest because they don't know a lot about it. And so I think sometimes people can be too quick to think it's that it's egregious or it's intentional when it's just, they just don't know and they're just ignorant, you know. And so it's our job to keep speaking out and advocating and educating people so they know, you know, what we're about and what we have to offer, and, you know, make sure that we ensure everyone's success in the future. Over.
Or U.S. Space Force recruitment. I'm gonna throw a couple tidbits in there. So from the words of General Raymond, I'm just gonna touch on that. This is U.S. Space Force's diversity inclusion type of big picture here, what we're trying to get after. We want to get it right from the beginning, and we're committed to doing so. However, we do understand that it is something that is taken note and is highlighted in today's social media aspect, as well as just highlighted across all the national stories as well. So we're trying to get after it, create that transparency. But what also the Space Force is trying to do is eliminate that frozen middle. So the bureaucracy of everything. So from the highest strategic leader down to the most tactical guardian, voices are heard and they have a safe space to transmit information. That flow of information is just trying to make it as seamless as possible. A lot of people ask me what type of AFSCs can actually join between the enlisted and officers. So to dispel any type of misconceptions, I'll let you know right off the bat, for the U.S. Space Force, the officers that they're looking for those that have the degrees and that are trying to become officers, it's like space operations officers, cyber operations officers, the acquisition managers, and the cyber warfare operations officers. Those are possible positions if you're wanting to become an officer in the Space Force. If you're wanting to go the enlisted side, You have the choices of space systems operations, computer systems programming, cybersecurity, cable and antenna systems, cyber transport systems, cyber systems operations, and intelligence analysts. I also have a plethora of US Space Force links to help out with like careers if you're interested. I have links to the civilian career opportunities that you have, as well as all the US Space Force military careers. What I think is like really, really cool about US Space Force is that it's like essentially, it's essential to all of our security and prosperity, so much that we need a branch to dedicate to its defense, just like we have branches of the military dedicated to protecting, securing the air, land, and sea. And that's like the #1 thing. Within the Space Force website, they said that it was unfederated access to space is vital to national defense. You know, space systems are woven into the very fabric of our way of life, and space affects most every part of our daily lives and is fundamental to our economic system. Yeah. So that's why we need the US Space Force. There's so much to this, and I'm just excited to be part of it. So if you have any questions, I got space answers.
And there's a Netflix show about Space Force too.
I can give a little plug for my National Guard here. Like I had said, I didn't want my dad to pay for my education. So joining the Air National Guard afforded me state scholarships through the Guard, as well as GI Bill through the Air Force, as well as the opportunity to join the AISES. It's an organization for Guard members. It's throughout the whole country. And they give out several scholarships every year for a bachelor's degree all the way up to PhD. So wow. being able to be a part of that organization, you can get a lot of money for your education, especially if you want to go higher up with your education.
So civilians, to echo Perez's comment, civilians have the opportunity to have bachelor's degrees as well as master's degrees paid for. I was one of those civilians, and you can also do overseas assignments for 3 to 5 years and come back with a basic preference. So as a civilian, you can go travel the world and work overseas for a couple of years and then come back. And you know, there's just opportunities for career development, career broadening as a civilian that I haven't seen anywhere else. And I've worked private sector, state, city, and now federal government. And it's just amazing opportunities you have as a civilian. And that the Air Force and Space Force want to invest in their people, because the more we invest, the better we are as a defense to our country. And so as a civilian, I can tell you right now, it's been the joy of my life working, and the opportunities I have available to me are endless, really. And so it's very fulfilling as a civilian to serve in this capacity. We call it the big A, big airman, because it includes civilians too, not little a, or guardians, big G versus little g. So yeah. And Rachel can speak to that too, because she's a civilian.
I am.
Yep.
Yeah, I am. And my journey through the Air Force has been lengthy. I enlisted in 1988 in San Antonio, Texas. Lackland is where basic training is. And so it was right down the street from where I grew up, which was really wild. But yeah, I enlisted. And then after 7 years, I was selected for a commissioning program. So then I became an officer in the Air Force. And then I retired in 2011, took a 5-year hiatus so I could finish school that the GI Bill paid for. And then I came back to the Air Force because I missed it. And now I'm a civilian. So I've worn three different lives in the Air Force. And I just, my devotion, my loyalty to the Air Force is so strong because of what the Air Force has given me. And that doesn't mean that you don't work hard, because you do. But oh my goodness, the Air Force has such great programs to help you be successful. So, but that doesn't mean we don't have concerns or barriers. That doesn't mean we're perfect. we recognize that we're not. And I think that's what makes like the INET such an incredible, powerful force, because that's the Air Force essentially saying, we know we're not perfect. We know we've got some areas we need to fix, but we don't know what it is. And we need you to help us. And we need you to tell us what it is, because we don't see it. But we know it's a problem because our numbers tell us it's a problem. So the fact that the Air Force wants to hear from all these different populations like INET to say, hey, how can we fix this? That's a powerful thing. And I know from when we talked about recruiting for a little while, the Air Force, like many of the other services, tend to just go into the most populated states, Florida, Texas, California, those kinds of, they deploy lots and lots of recruiters in states like that, but they're missing so much talent because, they think that it's not worth going to less populated states, but really it is. So that's part of what our efforts are, to help, bridge that gap and make those connections. So yeah, this is great. I'm happy to be a part of this. And just listening to y'all's stories, Sergeant Bettis and you, Jacqueline, and Captain Star Eagle, it's just an honor. I mean, you all are so impressive. So if I had to do it all again, I would come right back in. Yeah.
Can you all share a time that, where you've had kind of either a barrier or struggle that you've had to overcome, where your work was really like a critical piece to that and helped you, whether it be, like people at work or just, things you were doing? Do you mind sharing some kind of like stories like that? I think students, it's really important to remember that your workplace and places like the Air Force can be really helpful in helping overcome barriers and struggles.
Okay, so, all right, I'll go real quick because this is really impactful to me. That's why I feel so blessed to be in the Air Force. Can you hear me? Okay, my husband is active duty. We got to Charleston. I was big and pregnant, and gave birth to Maverick Dale Melcher, a wonderful 2.5-year-old son, and got started in the Air Force in January 19, and my husband deployed 3 months later. Maverick was 6 months old.
Wow.
The first week he deployed, Maverick quit breathing at daycare, and they had to call the ambulance. And I wasn't even to daycare yet, and my first sergeant for our squadron called downrange to Afghanistan to the person in Afghanistan. In less than 30 minutes, they had my husband on the phone and talking to me about our son on his way to the hospital in the ambulance. The way that my team rallied around me and supported me as a new mother with no family within 3 or 4 states, and my husband recently deployed, unbelievable. They brought over meals. They offered to watch my son if I wanted to go get my nails done or something, or just to have a day by myself. Because when your husband's deployed for 6 months, and I was in a new position trying to integrate into the Air Force, the way the team rallied around me and offered me support, my commander, my counterparts in the civilian side, it was just 100% amazing. And we call the big Air Force family because it literally is a big Air Force family. We care about each other, we lean on each other, and we provide support to each other. And that, to me, I will never forget that as long as I live. And I will always now be forever grateful because of my family within the Air Force, both civilians and military. That's my story, just so far being here for 2 years. Over.
I'm thinking of a time. Mine's actually kind of, I'm actually known, they call me the, I guess I should say guardian of 9 lives, but when I was in the Air Force, before I transferred to Space Force, I was known as the Airman of 9 lives because I'm probably the most accident prone individual you'll ever meet. As much as if Murphy's Law, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen to me. So case in point, 2012, I was down in Honduras for my deployment, and I decided to go climbing waterfalls. Don't ask me what drove that idea. I thought it was cool. And I accidentally slipped and fell. And when I hit the water, I swallowed the water. And we all know when you're in a third world country, you never swallow the water. By the time we got back to the base, I fell ill and I ended up with dysentery along with a multitude of other ailments, to the point where the Army had to medevac me out, and it became a life and death situation. And what I remember most about that situation was that my superintendent at the time, she was in the command post working, and everyone was like, Sergeant Star Eagle's sick and she's in the ER, in the emergency room. And so they contacted like everybody within the Joint Operations Center there, and people started showing up to the hospital to show their support. So I had a multitude of different service branches there because I worked with them, and they were like, hang in there. And by the time they got me into the helo, it was a 20-minute flight to Tegucigalpa. That third world hospital is not a fun time. So I had my superintendent online with me. I had a doctor in there. And I remember my last thoughts were when I was flying en route, my heart actually stopped. And I told people, I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt actually at peace. And the only last thing I thought about was like my dog, my little Yorkie. I got there, I woke up and I was like, this looks like American Horror Story, no. And the entire time, my superintendent was right there by my side for 4 days. And next, you know, we received a call as I was almost about to get release papers to discharge from the hospital. And it was the Southcom commander stated, we have a US military member, and they took note that I was there, and it made, you know, it was in his preview, so to speak. It was briefed to him, and they were going to medevac me out of Honduras to Walter Reed to get me medical care if I couldn't get out of there. But during that moment in time, I was so scared because it was literally days before Christmas, and you're in you're not in your home location, you're in a deployed environment. I had no idea what was going on. I was in so much pain. I thought I was going to be alone going through it, but instead it was the exact opposite. There were so many, like I said, people that I didn't even know that were tracking. And just like I said, I came back and everyone was like having like, hey, welcome back, Sergeant Star Eagle. And I was just like, wow, there's that many people that were supporting me. And they're like, we took care of this for you. We did this for you. And they helped me, you know, to get back on to being able to eat again. So many people had watched to ensure they helped me to walk because I couldn't walk for a little bit and everything. But I was out of it for a while. And just to know in a deployed environment, like Mrs. Melcher stated, one team, one fight, like it's family within any service branch, especially when you're in a deployed environment. All you have is each other. And it just seems like that's the best part about being in the military, is that at any given moment in time, whenever I've had any situation happen, that was just one story. I've always had my Air Force and Space Force family there, and along with my other joint partners. And it's been an amazing ride to know that I'm never alone in that capacity. And even when you're going through times, if you get put on new medication or something like that, and you don't know what's going to happen, everybody's only a phone call away. Someone knows someone, you're just right there. So that's the greatness of it all, is that it's all about like just taking care of each other. And that's what I love about the job that I do every day, is just like, I don't have a family of my own. I just have my little dog, but at the end of the day, I know that the Air Force and Space Force is my family, and it's amazing.
Well, I don't have a very dramatic story like these ladies do, but I do have a story about how the Air National Guard is like a super tight-knit family. So the New Mexico Air National Guard has been known as the Enchilada Air Force. And over the years for the deployments, a lot of the teams that would go out, we would host an enchilada dinner for the host nation or the host wherever we were, whether it was for an exercise or whatever. And the one that sticks out for me is when I was in Korea, we all had this plan that we wanted to keep this tradition going, and we wanted to show the people that we were with. We were there with Montana National Guard and Colorado National Guard, and we wanted to have the enchilada dinner. So everybody back home here in New Mexico rallied together. They got the green chili, the red chili. They sent us corn tortillas. They sent us beans. They sent us everything that we needed that we couldn't buy in Korea. And there was a group of, I think there was about 20 of us that got together and made enchiladas for everybody. We fed, geez, I don't know, probably a couple hundred people. And it was just really awesome to be able to make that mark on everybody, to show that, you know, we're like any family. Sharing a meal together was important to us. Being able to be a part of making that meal, making friends while we're out there eating that meal. It was just really awesome to know that that's family. A meal is family. And we got to do that out there in Korea. So that was really awesome.
That's
I'm hungry
amazing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I say, now I'm hungry. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm hungry
Yeah,
now.
me too. Yes. That your stories are so amazing, and I'm so appreciative to hear your experiences and your background and just see where you are now. That's been really wonderful to hear. So thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. I'm going to give everyone one last opportunity if there are any questions or thoughts, or if we have any last thoughts from our Air Force members that are here with us, Air Force and Space Force that are here with us. If you have any last thoughts, any last questions, just want to afford that opportunity before we part ways for the evening. And thank you again to everyone who is here and has shared your wisdom and time with us this evening. And if not, we will call it a day for this student chat. So thank you all.
I have lots of questions, but I'm not going to ask them all now because I feel like I'm over. But Jacqueline, could you just kind of wrap up, if you don't mind, for us in like your just kind of your thoughts in putting this particular group together, and just overall the work that you all are doing with your I think ITEP program, and just some kind of closing thoughts there, because I know it's been a lot of work, and we're just so excited that you're doing it.
Yeah, sure, of course. So it's funny how much it's grown just in like 3 months. And because we'll send an invite out and then someone shares that to somebody else. And I just recently got a message yesterday from 3 people that want to be part of our group. And now the Facebook post, and now we have AISES on board, and it's growing almost exponentially. And the more we can get representation and different minds together and collaboration, the better we can be. And our biggest goal is to collaborate and listen and learn and then advocate. We have other agencies that are working with us so we don't duplicate efforts, and we can be one big voice and, you know, work unilaterally versus against each other. And so I love that we have the Space Force and the Guardians and that leadership channel, Air Force and that leadership channel, because you know, like Colonel Adams says to me a couple of different times, we can go fast and go alone, we can go slow and be big, right? So we get the more representation, the more people that want to join and want to help, the better we're going to be for lasting impacts. And so we that's kind of our closing statement. And I look forward to opportunities to meet the students as we go to the national conference this fall. And I want to just tell them, don't give up, because people are here to support you. And we've all been where they are. We've all had challenges in our lives, but it's those challenges that make us stronger and give us that grit to keep moving forward. And we're just excited to be here. And thank you guys for your opportunity.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we can see you all at the national conference with lots of students and hear even more about your stories. I've got lots more now for Captain Star Eagle. I want to hear some more of her exciting ones and all about Space Force.
Lots of people that can attest and that can definitely confirm all of the stories. Everyone's like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, oh dear. So I'll share with you when I see you in person.
Yes, there we go.
Allowing us to be keynote speakers tonight. And with tonight's engagement, it really means a lot and it's very humbling.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to take over the hosting duties from McKaylee since I'm the actual person who pushes the end button. Don't want to startle anyone. So thank you so much. We'll send over the recording to make sure we can then post it and share it widely later. And yeah, so I'll send that over and we'll be in touch. And just thank you all so much. This was great. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Thank you.